For our bicentennial celebrations, we are going to fully immerse you in Tobago's legislative history.
We are going to show you the importance of understanding oneself for the present and future development of our people. And for us, it all starts here.
The celebration starts today, April 23. This marks the day that Governor F.P. Robinson laid the foundation stone for construction of the building in 1821. It took 4 years for the building to be completed, and it is considered to be one of the best examples of Georgian architecture in the region. Today, it stands uptown Scarborough for 2 centuries, and you get a chance to touch 200 years of history at this year's Night of Mystery, Saturday, 26 April 2025. It's a tour of the building, but with a twist.
We kick off the first event for our babies, our future. We wanted to find a unique and creative way of including our preschoolers in our celebration. Little Voice, Big Heritage gives our preschoolers the opportunity to do a little research with the help of mommy, daddy, and of course the teachers, to script a verse about anything legislative and present it to an audience. We'll even help by providing a breakdown of our legislative history from 1825 to 2025 for you to choose from.
The month of May is going to be jam-packed with activities for our young debaters as the highly anticipated primary plenary caravan. Our staff will visit all primary schools and begin training sessions from May 12th. Last year was definitely a learning curve for us. As we visited schools, we quickly learned our primary schoolers wanted to know more. And in an effort to fulfill our mandate of engaging and educating at all levels, we have decided to include their voices in the much talked about autonomy discussions. What will be presented? We just have to wait and see when these primary school students take over the house to hold their debate on Thursday, June 12, 2025.
Listen, we have a full calendar of events on our website. If you scan this code, it will take you straight to all the dates. There's our weekly web series on myths and memories. We tell the stories you love and easy to remember for you to share with your friends and family starting in May.
If you want a deep dive into what really happens in Tobago and not what's just in the books you've read, you'll want to be a part of our panel discussion. Tobago historians, former assemblymen, youth debaters will engage in thought-provoking discourse. Look out for This Is Us, Legacy Cultural Celebrations.
During the Tobago Heritage Festival, we would show how Tobago's legislature affected people's lives. People were restricted from becoming members of the Assembly legislature. But with the number of landed Tobagonians, things started to change. Find out more at our Tobago Heritage Festival presentation in July.
The Assembly building housed a critical part of our island's history. Through various mediums, we will host our first ever exhibition at the Tobago Fine Arts Center at Fort King George. The People's Gala is in September. It is a celebration that pays recognition to the men and women who define us. We will honor the members who fought for where we are today.
In October, we end our bicentennial celebration with a dedication ceremony to recognize the Assembly building as a heritage site.
Check out our socials regularly for updates or go to tobagolegislature.org for details.
All things flow from here. And when we think of that phrase, it's supposed to evoke some form of feeling, be it nostalgia or whatever it might be. The fact remains that when we think of Tobago, this building is the one place to which everything flowed. Be it churches, courthouses, library, finance,
post office.
This is us. Everything flows from here.
Welcome back to Youth Wednesdays on Tobago Updates. Now, as promised, we start our jam-packed interviews this morning. And the first interview up is here to speak to us about the primary plenary school. I don't want to say tour, but an event. She'll take you through all of the events this morning, and I want to welcome to studio Sophia Cooper. She's a special programs coordinator at Assembly Legislature. Good morning to you, Sophia.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. All right, so she has, as I said, a lot in store to speak to you about. Now, we know what happens at Assembly Legislature. We know the debates that happen there with the adults, etc. We know what comes out of it, right? But do we know that the little ones are now invited to, take us through their debating skills, showing us that they are ready for the world of debate, etc., etc., right? I don't want to say too much because that is what Sophia is here to speak to us about today. All right, so what ages would you be catering to for the entire tour?
Our calendar of events for the bicentennial celebration, and this is where we pay recognition to Tobago's legislative history.
Okay.
And you could appreciate that that's not an easy sentence to dive into, right?
It is not.
Like, how do you introduce legislative history to students? It doesn't really sound interesting or roll off your tongue. So this is what we've done. We've created a number of activities that are either tactile or immersive,
right?
So that when we take young people through those experiences, they come away learning something. But the idea is to ensure that they're engaged and they're having fun. And that's why we're having the primary school tour that leads to the primary plenary.
Okay.
And the primary school tour is when we go to all 42 primary schools across the length and breadth of Tobago, and we introduce them to this idea of Assembly Legislature.
Okay.
What we focus on is the idea that you can participate in your own democracy. And to do that at the Assembly Legislature, we host debates. And then after we take them through the history, we introduce them to key persons, whether it's the presiding officer that runs the legislature, or we talk about people like Mr. A.N.R. Robinson, who was the chairman in 1980. And we really get them to see that it's relatable, that it's not just for adults. And so when they meet us on the 12th of June inside the chamber, they are ready to go. We did it last year, and I tell you, I don't want to say that they were better than the adults. That would be unfair. But based on the response that we got, people were so... I guess it was unexpected that children of that age could deliver, but sometimes we underestimate children. That's the thing.
So you're stressing on children that age. Now, I just want to add in here that we have different age groups taking part in this plenary, right? Let's focus a little bit on Little Voices, Big Heritage. I think the viewers would be a bit shocked to hear the age group that this is catering to. So tell us what the age group is.
Little Voices, Big Heritage are for those children 3 to 5 years old.
Wow.
So it's in the form of a verse-speaking experience.
Yes.
And the subject matter is actually the building that we're in. So that building is 200 years old this year. And in it, for those who could remember, it was the first Scarborough Library.
Okay.
And then it had EBC in that building at one point, Inland Revenue, the Registrar General's office. But actually it started out as a courthouse. And within the courthouse was the chamber. So it's really purpose-built for an assembly legislature and governance on the island.
Okay.
Now, again, 3 to 5 year olds. Like, how do we deal with that?
I was just about to ask, like, how do you keep the focus of a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old on assembly legislature business, on the history of the assembly legislature? Tell us.
That's why it's in the form of a verse-speaking experience.
Right.
So we expect the teachers and the parents to jump in at this point. And I'm sure that they will be learning along with the little ones. But the idea is, how do you capture that information in a way that's relatable to a 3 to 5 year old and get them to remember the content? Now, we know if you've been to a graduation or one of the events with the preschool students, you know that they can deliver.
Of course.
Exactly. So we are putting it in a form that we know that they can accomplish this task. It's just that the parents and the teachers also have to step in. And the criteria for judging includes a section where you have to tell us where you got the information.
Right. So I'm going to touch on that part. Now, obviously, we wouldn't want to let them down easily. They ain't just coming to speak on camera, give us the little, flitty flare thing, right? They're coming to fulfill a criteria that has been given by the judges. So what is the criteria that we are judging these children based on?
Clear speech.
Okay.
We want them to deliver with confidence, but clear speech is important. Now, we're not focusing too much on costume. Just your school uniform or comfortable clothes is fine. Yes. If you want to do a little more, that's also okay. But clear speech is what we want. And we also want you to tell us where you got your information. Now, we do have a website, tobagolegislature.org, and on that website is a timeline, which tells you the year the foundation stone was laid, 1821. Okay. But construction was completed in 1825. Tell us about that. The building is made of limestone. Now, you don't have a lot of buildings made of limestone. True. You have a couple of them in Tobago. Include that. Talk about it was a courthouse. So here we have a courthouse in Tobago, its own legislature, upper house and lower house. Tell us about that. Tell us what happened in the building. So that's what we're challenging parents and teachers to do. Make sure they get the information, keep it simple, and tell us what it's all about, the bicentennial celebration for the Assembly Legislature.
Right. So we're focusing on ages 3 to 5. What's the next age?
The next stage would be those in primary school. And this is the June 12th.
Right.
Right. So coincidentally, the deadline for submitting the video is June 12th for the preschoolers, which is the day that the primary plenary is scheduled to take place. Okay. So you could do both on the same day. So you know that we're locked on to Assembly Legislature in June, right?
Right.
Right. So for the primary school students, we're actually doing the primary school caravan at the moment. We're going to 42 primary schools. We're going to deliver the content. So this one, the information is going directly to the students. And let me tell you, we've started on Monday. And these students, yesterday, the presiding officer was with us. And at the end of the session, we introduced them to what we do, roles and functions, a debate. We did a mock debate. Right? So they understand what it means to represent your peers, come up with your points and have pros and cons.
I don't think we should take turn for joking. I feel like, they look at TV, they look at how our parents react to certain things and they're picking this up. So don't think that they don't know anything about debating. That is what I want to put in there.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things we focused on is a subject matter that relates to them. So for some schools, we talked about whether or not an AC unit should be in every class.
Okay.
Right? And most primary schools...
that debate.
But here's the thing about a parliamentary style debate. You have to do for and against.
Right.
So imagine those students who have to argue against having an AC. At first, you're kind of like, no, miss. But here's the thing. Challenge them to come up with pros and cons. It helps them see that a solution requires you looking at all sides of the problem.
Yes.
And they were able to come up with those points. One school was asked to debate the school uniform, if they like it or not. Again, they were able to come up with pros and cons.
Right.
The final school, not the final school, but one of the schools we did yesterday, they were debating the menu for the school feeding. I have to go delicately with that one. So they now had their debate on what the menu should be like, right? And some complaints that they had about what they currently experience.
How long did you stay on the complaints part of that?
Not too long. They were actually given 3 minutes to come up with their points. And then they chose somebody to speak on behalf of for and against, and then they delivered in the form of a debate.
Right. Okay. So I love how you mentioned the time that they were given in the mock debate.
3 minutes.
They were given 3 minutes
to
at the
come up with
primary
their
school
points.
level, right? But how much time would the ages 3 to 5 have for presenting their debate?
So in that case, they are just dealing with their content as opposed to a for and against.
Right.
And they have 90 seconds.
I promise, a preschooler could say a lot in 90 seconds, I don't underestimate these little ones.
So 90 seconds, max. It could be less than 90.
Right.
But 90 seconds max.
Okay, I'm really excited to hear what these primary school children especially have to say, because that topic was very interesting. The school feeding menu, that's what you said. I
Yes.
remember when well,
I
everybody,
want to use the common terminal, but I'm not sure if it's
it's
political.
grub. Just
Yes,
say
it
it's
is.
grub.
And they did use grub. They didn't put it over like school feeding menu.
No,
it's like
you
grub.
have to bring it over passionately, you know. This is what I don't like or like about grub. It's grub. We know it as grub, you know. So I'm happy that you all actually started that training with them to see where their talent actually is. So, you know, if they show up at the Assembly Legislature in fifth form, you all can't deny them.
But this is the thing. Even though we do that with the class, when we get to the training for primary plenary, we then take them through parliamentary procedures, debating techniques. We go through dress code and etiquette, public speaking techniques and presentation skills. We train them how to use the microphones in the chamber. Now, for debates, you're not allowed to read. So even if they have a speech, and sometimes people see them with the paper, we've actually trained them how to deliver without that paper.
Right.
It is a rule in the house that when you're debating, you're not supposed to read. And that scares people a little. They kind of like, how do I remember all of this? But they do. So it's also training you mentally how to absorb a lot of information at the same time and selectively deliver that information. So they're transferable skills that they could take with them into secondary school.
Right. So we are excited for those debates, but I don't want our viewers to miss out on the events that you all have leading up to those debates. You know, that week of events. You said that the sign up for the 3 to 5 ends on the 12th, which is the same day as the primary plenary. So, you know, we see that there is I don't want to say overlap. Overlap is not the word, but there is this jam-packed session going on, you know, continuously at the Assembly Legislature that week. So could you highlight some of those events that we can look forward to in that week specifically?
So that week, we're going to focus on the children, right? So between now and then, it's all about the children, 3 to 5 for Little Voices, Big Heritage.
Right.
And the primary plenary, that's primary school students, specifically SCA students.
Right.
Right? So they're going into secondary school with this. Then we have an exhibition. Now that exhibition is carded to take place in July at the Fine Arts Center located at Fort King George. You can imagine that a building that's 200 years old might not have the space to accommodate 200 years of history.
Right.
So we have the Fine Arts Center, and that is going to be amazing in terms of capturing that history in artistic expression. Then we have the People's Gala that's coming up in August, and then there's a film event in October. So look out for what's happening on our social media pages, tobagolegislature.org, or if you want to come in and see our plenary live, you can do so in the public gallery on the 4th Thursday every month at 1:30 p.m.
And where do we find it live if we can't make it to the Assembly Legislature?
Right. So just look for Assembly Legislature on Facebook. We also have a TikTok page and a YouTube channel. If you want, you can type out the whole thing, Tobago House of Assembly Legislature.
All right. So we do look forward to those debates. We do look forward to the 3 to 5 and the primary school level children. We just look forward to the points that they have to bring across. We look forward to what these little ones can bring to the table as young as they are, just getting into that debate vibe for when they get older and they join the older leaders in Parliament, right? So we have a lot to look forward to from the Assembly Legislature, actually, under Miss Sophia Cooper, who would be taking us through those events all up until October, right? So, stay tuned. Right? I don't want to give them my statement, but before I do so, Miss Sophia Cooper, thank you so much for joining us here on Youth Wednesdays on Tobago Updates. We look forward to all of the events that are carded from this month on until October. The first event, of course, we are focusing on the 3 to 5, the Little Voices, Big Heritage, and then we go straight into the primary plenary school event. that leads with a tour into that event. I don't want to get that wrong because we want to focus on those events specifically, right? So thank you once again. And in order to see this, remember to go to thaassemblylegislator.org. You'll see all of the events carded. And of course, if you want to watch it live, you can join them on their Facebook, TikTok, or YouTube page. All right, they look forward to sharing these events with you. Before I go, viewers, please share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.